People who've written malicious code, viruses, trojans, etc. What motivated you to do so? I inserted the code that opened every disk drive in the entire school once a week simultaneously by copying it, and when a teacher left her administrator account logged in. With around 100 computers in our small school of 400 students, it was a ungodly funny experience hearing every CD drive open at once and everyone looking at each other. For 3 months there was an intense witch hunt for the code and the perpetrator with rewards and threats, but they never found it. Eventually they upgraded the entire school's mainframe and my beautiful creation was gone forever. It was 1998, and it was a total accident for my Excel macro to escape my desktop and begin infecting Excel workbooks all over the company. I had created a macro to automatically make a backup copy of the active workbook upon saving. The backup copy appeared in my home folder on a network drive, but one day I helped someone in HR with an Excel problem. They sat at my desk. I opened their doc, made a change, and saved it. My autosave macro replicated to their workbook. Now everyone in HR accessed that workbook over the next couple days, and every time they saved it, a copy would show up in my H/drive. The macro escaped their department, and the next, and the next. Pretty soon I got a visit from it admin. My H/drive was full. I checked and there were hundreds of workbooks, not mine, but clearly named with my backup file naming convention. I knew instantly what the problem was and had to fess up. My productivity tool cost me an entire weekend of cleanup. I did it once, but it wasn't harmful and was intended just for fun. I was in high school. I wrote an April Fool's virus. So it gets triggered by plugging in a USB stick. It copies itself into the computer and starts a timer. I did it on the classroom computer when no one was looking. Easy peasy. Then in the middle of the class, it fires a fake error message during some slides are open. The message tells that there is something wrong with the system. When teacher clicks OK or dismisses it, the computer restarts itself. Windows starts again, and another message gets fired. April Fools. Did you like our joke? When clicked no, it triggers a second reset. Motivation. We had a good laugh about it. Working with a bunch of programmers, we had a boss that liked to prank us. But he was pretty old school, so his ideas of pranks were putting tape over your mouse sensor, unplugging Ethernet cables, etc. One day, my fellow programmers and I were discussing the movie Super Troopers and the boss overheard us and commented that he thought the movie was dumb, so I clearly had to do something. I wrote a small background app that would alter any text he copy and pasted and change any instance of the word now to meow. I installed it when he left his PC unlocked. We did notice a few technical documents and emails with meow in it over the next few months. Eventually he noticed and called me in to fix the weird problem with his PC. I gave him some line about clearing the clipboard cache and killed the process without him realizing what was really happening. I wanted to find love. I discovered an exploit on a dating site I used that allowed me to perform actions on behalf of users simply by loading an image. Originally, I used the exploit to show a video message when they visited my profile, but when that didn't convert into offline dates, I tried a more aggressive tactic. This dating site gave preferential attention to attractive profiles, measured by how many views or likes they received. So I wrote an exploit that would like my profile, then add the exploit to your own profile. I became the most popular profile in an hour, but a mistake in my exploit added the exploit recursively, resulting in exponential requests from users to like my profile. After a couple hours, loading any profile resulted in thousands of requests, multiplied by millions of users, and my exploit ended up crashing the dating site. Oops. The admin calmly contacted me for help reversing and patching the exploit in exchange for not suing me. I did this once back in high school. Motivation, petty revenge and bullying. Stopped when it backfired. There was an annoying kid in my computer science classes, the type who thought he knew it all but was pretty clueless. One day he was complaining that a game he had downloaded required more memory than his home computer had. I told him I'd give him a copy of a utility that would do on-the-fly memory compression in DOS. At the time, a utility called Stacker for disk compression was popular, so memory compression was plausible. Of course, my utility was a Trojan. But I was subtle about it. It was a wrapper that planted the real Trojan payload in the startup file, autoexec.bat. The real Trojan checked the system date and only detonated if it was a month later than I originally did this. So he wouldn't be tracing the time bomb back to me. The payload was to trash the partition table, rendering all the drives inaccessible and unbootable. I don't know if he actually ran it or if the payload ever went off. The bomb date was in the summer after school ended. But the fun part is the postscript. Years later, my brother was playing with and learning programming, so I gave him a copy of my folder with all my old programs to play with. A few days later he tells me that his computer won't boot. Yikes. I put together a startup floppy disk with an auto repair utility to start digging and eventually notice that the partition table had some corruption that looked oddly familiar. You guessed it, my own brother had run my old nasty Trojan and got his partition table nuked. Editing this infamous abruptly for visibility, how this kid was annoying was to brag about shit that it was obvious to me that he didn't actually know. For assignments in AP Computer Science, he would brag that his program would be better than everyone else's, with fancy colors or run faster or some shit. Then he wouldn't be able to code it and blame the compiler or some other excuse. Teacher was oblivious and bought his crap. I got annoyed enough to attempt more drastic revenge. I created a dummy Hotmail login page way back in junior high. I just put it on the school computer desktops as a shortcut saying Hotmail. It would write the entered info to a text document. Some people actually used it. I quit because let's be real, that's not very high-end hacking and was pretty much the best I could do. Nowadays it seems like there are way too many security features in place to prevent that kind of thing, so I don't know if I could be a hacker anymore. But it was a fun challenge as a kid in the early days of the internet. Made me feel uber 1337. Edit. Also, I never had the confidence in my hacking abilities to think that I could get away with it. It was just a silly trick I stumbled upon as a kid and then was like, I'm not good enough to actually do this without getting in serious trouble. Wanted to link with my friends. This was around high school. Their antivirus would catch the backdoor programs I'd send them, so I made my own. This is before most of the antivirus software worked on heuristics and could stop unknown threats. I knew their antivirus would catch it because they had the same one I did, and when I'd go to download them they'd label them. So what I did was I first sent out my Trojan and get them to install it. Then a week later I sent them the Trojans the antivirus could find. At this point they'd then know I was trying to do something, as their antivirus would tell them not to open it and would no longer open attachments from me. They then became more cautious and wouldn't open files from me, but it was too late. I played it like I was getting annoyed that nothing I was doing was working. I waited a while and said I found a site with lots of amazing hacking techniques, so then I would routinely act like I was hacking them in real time when I was just connecting to the Trojan I made and got them to install before. This wasn't something that ever propagated and was pretty harmless, mostly something to open and close their CD trays and demonstrate that I could. That was a lot of typing and a lot less interesting that I was thinking. Mostly to learn. One of the things I find tough with programming is finding something to do. If you have a job then it's easy. You have bugs to fix, features to add. Someone else tells you what to do and that's great. But if it's just you sitting there, what do you do? Make a website? Nah, I don't feel like it. Make an awesome looking customizable themed desktop app? Awesome. But what's it gonna do? I dunno. Malicious programs are basically the only thing that's interesting enough for me to look into in my free time. It's also the reason I started programming beyond classes and lessons in the first place. To mess with my classmates mostly. I haven't made anything too malicious, though I did make a cheat for MW3 at one point. Even though it was posted on public cheating forums, it still took over a year for it to be VAC detected. From that I also learned about obfuscating your code and compiling outside of Visual Studio. It had a tagging system where you'd shove tags into the code, then run a separate program that would look for those tags and fill the space in between with random junk code before compiling to try hide the program from vacation. With each recompile with the program it would essentially be a fresh eggs with a different signature and file size. I was pretty happy about that project, just because of what I managed to accomplish, and what I learned on the way. I rickrolled my friend for years. My friend was moving away, and as a prank, I wrote up a script that would wait 10 to 20 minutes, then play Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Right before my friend packed up his computer, I installed it as a subtly named Windows startup service. Then he moved and never mentioned it, and I forgot about it after a couple weeks. Several years later he had moved back, and a few friends and I were hanging out at his place. He boots up his PC to show us something on YouTube, then says oh, hang on, and opens Task Manager and kills some task. With a somewhat straight face I ask, what was that you just did? He explains that he got a virus that sometimes plays the Rick Astley song and he can't get rid of it. At some point he figured out that manually ending a certain process would stop it. I just about died laughing. I can only imagine how many times he must have heard that song. My friends, though it was funny too, but they thought it was a little messed up that I put a virus on his computer. A local radio station was having a women's hot bod contest. The contestants had their picture taken with only the radio station's bumper sticker covering their bits. One contestant only had one photograph on there despite the others having multiple photos. I didn't think this was a very fair contest, so I decided to take action. Since the voting was online, I looked at their voting page code, wrote a script to post votes automatically, and submitted hundreds of thousands of votes for the underdog girl with one picture. Needless to say, this skewed the results of the contest so significantly, 99.9999% to nil on the other girls. They had to shut down and restart the contest, this time with more security, email verification required. I actually called into the radio station and told them what I had done too. They begged me to even it out, but that wasn't possible. I did a few things, money being a motive, though I only ever made a couple hundred, and interest being another motive. I'm now a developer. One evil genius program I wrote was to make clicks on ads on my fake porn site, and my account earned pay-per-clicks on the ads. The program disabled the user's keyboard and mouse, covered up their screen so they couldn't see what was happening, then proceeded to browse to my web page and click on the ad, then close the browser and give control back to the user. It would do this at a random interval between 30 and 60 minutes. Didn't want it to be exactly 1 hour, in case it flagged something. It worked well. Too well, due to how I infected people. So this is a whole other story. What I did was gather/compile a list of all the top games and softwares, etc. that people might have interest in trying to download for free. This was when services like Kazaa and LimeWire were huge. I then wrote a program that I imported that list into, and then copied my clicking program I discussed in last paragraph, appending crackpatch serial to the exe file name, x.adobe photoshop crackpatch serial.exe. Yes, it has trouble written all over it, but people didn't know any better. I shared these files, I'm talking thousands of files, on Kazaa or whatever, and just left my machine running. When users initially ran my program for the first time, it would copy itself to a new file somewhere else on the machine and set that new copy to start up with Windows, and just tell user there's some random fake error, like vb32.dll not found, or whatever. So, if they deleted my original program I'd still get their clicks, and if they didn't, they'd share the file with others. This is where it got crazy. Due to my program being shared exponentially, my pay-per-click accounts did as well. At first it was cool, like yeah it's working. But then, next thing you know it, the account is sitting at over $10,000. One click was only like, what, $0.25 at best. I still remember that oh shit moment like the guys in Office Space when they looked at their account balance. The site soon shut my account down for illegal activities, and I got no money. But for at least 3 years I could still see some of my programs being shared on P2P networks. Sorry people, I didn't have an escape plan. I also once wrote a client/server Trojan program where you could control the users, victims, mouse, keyboard, file transfers, etc. through creating my own protocol for the client and server to communicate. I never used it maliciously, or even tried to, but I enjoyed the many hours I spent learning. Stopped doing these sorts of things because it was non-profitable and becoming increasingly illegal, especially after turning 18. I'm still always thinking about ways around things, as it's just in my blood, but I try to use it for good and not evil. Currently a developer for work, so I did gain some experience as a child, even if it was initially for evil. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.